I've been reading a book by a Christian named Shane Claiborne, and Shane has a spellbinding story. In one year, he went from spending a summer working with Mother Teresa in Calcutta and living in a leper colony to being a youth pastor at Willow Creek Community Church in Chicago, which is that super mega church of 20,000 people that our confirmation classes visited. All of this led to Shane and a friend creating a community in Philadelphia called the Simple Way. Members of the community share a house, they share possessions, they're actively involved in serving the poor in Philadelphia and throughout the country and the world. They try to live Jubilee as the early church did. Now, if Christians can live this way now, I'm sure there were Christians living this way as the church was beginning too. I've been fascinated by Shane's book and the story of the Simple Way community. But at the same time, just assuming that our churches really aren't looking to sell all of our possessions and buy a big house and start living together like the Simple Way, I wonder what this all means for us. If we aren't prepared to live Jubilee like that, then how might we live toward Jubilee? One insightful quote from Shane Claiborne and then a story. Claiborne writes, "It's important to understand that redistribution comes from community, not before community. Redistribution is what happens when people fall in love with each other across class lines. When the Bible tells the story, When the Bible tells the story of the early church in the book of Acts, it does not say that they were of one heart and mind because they sold everything. Rather, they held all in common precisely because they were of one heart and mind. As rich and poor found themselves born again into a family in which some had extra and others were desperately in need." Now a story. This week I was talking with a clergy colleague who serves a small church in southwestern Wisconsin. This colleague told me what was going on in their church, and it seems to me to be an example of a congregation living toward Jubilee. It doesn't mean it's without controversy. Jubilee isn't either. In my colleague's community, like in Iowa County, there are many immigrant workers and immigrant families. One day, my colleague encountered a woman from Mexico with children they were all desperately in need. Along with her 2 children, she was currently living in a shelter for women who suffer from domestic violence. She was in the process of getting a restraining order on her husband. She needed to find work, but that was difficult to do because she doesn't have the papers that she needs, okay? She needs everything: safety, food, water, legal help, so she can get work in this place. Well, my friend, my clergy colleague, invited her and her children to come to church. And she did, with her family, and that was this last spring. And the congregation embraced the Mexican woman and her 2 children. They fell in love with her and her family. And so they start pooling their money to help her cover food and rent and school supplies. They're helping with her legal fees, helping her through the process of getting the papers she needs to obtain work. The 12-year-old boy is mowing every lawn in the congregation to get income for the family. And here's the fascinating part. This congregation is no different than any small congregation in southwest Wisconsin. There are many within the congregation who feel that illegal immigration is a big problem in the United States and in Wisconsin in particular. There are people in that congregation who are calling President Obama a liar, along with the South Carolina congressman this week. Okay? But those people also hired this 12-year-old boy to mow their lawn. And now they are saying, what a hard worker. He's such a nice boy. What a nice family. The power of love and relationship is breaking down all sorts of boundaries and bridging all kinds of divides. Racial divides, class divides, even the boundary of nation, state, and citizen. This congregation is seeing this mother and children as fellow human beings. Now, they don't know for sure if this woman is going to stay or not, but they want her to. They want these human beings that they've grown to love to stay in the church and in the community, and they're willing to give of themselves to make that possible. And they are recognizing that there are many other people in the community in the same predicament, and they're thinking about how not to help just one family, but the whole immigrant community around them. This is a surprising power of the church, and this is a church that is moving toward Jubilee. So what might be the take-home message here? Perhaps it's that the Spirit will lead us toward powerful relationship with one another, and especially toward relationship that crosses some sort of divide, whether it's a generational divide, a political divide, a lifestyle difference divide, however we have different lifestyles from one another, or a class divide. And then the Spirit will show us how redemptive and powerful love can be, how it can dismantle the boundaries between us, how it can erase the lines we draw in the sand, and it will show us the whites in each other's eyes. And we will start to see that we are fellow human beings. We share God's creation. We are God's children together. Love can do that. It will do that. And when love does that, who knows what we're going to share with one another? That's the realm of God. We proclaim it here, and we seek to live it here too. Amen.